Good morning, everyone. Samuel Omolo, a PhD research fellow with the Africa Oncogenomics Network and LI-Fraumeni Syndrome Association with focus on genomics and translational medicine. I focus on genomic landscape of TP53 gene and DNA changes that increases risk of familial cancers and their risk towards getting tumors. My goal is to understand where does this risk come from so that we can come up with strategies for prevention and treatment of these cancers in patients and their families. LI-Fraumeni syndrome is an inherited cancer predisposition syndrome with patients who are born with mutations that are change in one of the genes, and these predisposes them to high risk of cancer. P53 gene is a guardian of the genome and not the gene that we wear, the kind of genes that we wear, but genes that are found in our DNA. And it has such an important role that it's been called by so many scientists and doctors as a police of the human body, or the molecular bucket brigade that we have that protects us from cancer. If this gene detects a mutation or a change in your DNA, then it helps to repair. But if it's far too gone, then it leads to cancer. The patients with LI-Fraumeni syndrome, one of those very important gene is altered. These LI-Fraumeni patients have 50% chance that their children will also inherit the mutation, and they will go on to have LI-Fraumeni syndrome. A patient with LI-Fraumeni syndrome has a 90 to 100% lifetime risk of developing cancer. And just imagine how it would be like these patients and their families knowing that you almost certainly in a lifetime will develop cancer, or sometimes during your childhood. Not only that, patients with LI-Fraumeni syndrome will often go on to develop multiple types of cancers, and that's the most unique thing about LI-Fraumeni syndrome. LI-Fraumeni syndrome prevalence is estimated at about 5,000 individuals, and in truth it may be even as frequent as 1 in every 2,500 individuals. This syndrome may be more prevalent than we even realize or think. Therefore, by studying this syndrome, we learn to recognize who else might have LI-Fraumeni syndrome. They may not even know that they have it, but these may, through tests, may help them and save life, and hopefully save the lives of their family members who also carry this high-risk gene. One of the most exciting things about researching LI-Fraumeni syndrome in the laboratory is trying to discover a cure for this disease, or trying to prevent this syndrome. And that it doesn't apply only to patients with LI-Fraumeni syndrome. It's actually relevant to everybody in the world with cancer. Over half of all cancers involve change in P53 gene that we see mutated in families with LI-Fraumeni syndrome. That's quite important. If we could understand, if we could crack that nut of LI-Fraumeni syndrome in P53 gene and understand its contribution to cancer, if we could unlock how to target a P53 gene in patients with LI-Fraumeni syndrome, then we haven't just helped patients with LI-Fraumeni syndrome, we will have helped every single person with cancer all over the world. Half of all men and a third of all women throughout their lifetime will develop cancer. So this is really important and relevant to every man, woman, and child on the planet and continent Africa. If we identify who is at risk, we can make sure that we have 100% survival rate through screening. If we know where to screen, when to screen, and how to screen, and that's versus only 20% survival if we don't screen, So we are talking about the difference between 100% survival rate and 20% survival rate, which is life-saving statement. Using such kind of information we gather in laboratory will help every patient in the world who has cancer by studying the genetics related to LI-Fraumeni syndrome and cancer development. We can decode exactly where cancer comes from and stop them on their tracks before they get large and spread to critical organs. Not only are we using the information to treat patients, we try to understand how to attack cancer where it's most vulnerable, susceptible, and we can make the biggest impact in terms of doing genomic research and trying to understand where does cancer come from. Thank you very much.